Hey LAN party gamers! Welcome back to Custom Corner. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. And by little, I mean we're going to make the smallest server rack that I've ever put together. Before we've used what I like to call the server cart, or as my roommate calls it, the war wagon, which is a LAN rig basically on wheels that you can take anywhere you want. It contains a Windows server with a shared drive and TeamSpeak server built in. It has a large 48 port switches for giving everybody gigabit access, as well as the router built right into one of them. This is going to be a miniatured and small version of that same idea. We're going to be using the MX500 from our last episode as the case that's going to give us the size of our entire setup. We're going to also have a 16 port network switch resting on top of it, and then we're going to have to find a place for all the cables, power, etc. And that's all going to be housed between these aluminum rails that we got as a gift. So stay tuned and we'll figure how we're going to be putting this together. Alright, so the idea that I'm having is that we can go ahead and put the server on the bottom because it's the biggest part, and then we'll go ahead and put the network switch on top, add some rails to the side of it, match them up with these other L brackets that I found that bring it to the same size, and then use these, cut them down with a grinder, and put them vertically to make the side rails of the entire thing. It should work out pretty good. My only concern is I'm going to have 3 separate power cables, and where exactly to put everything at the bottom of that. I have this 3-port power switch that somebody gave us from another event, so I might go ahead and use that. But we'll see how it goes and just follow along with the build, and I'll try to explain what I'm doing as I go. So let's do it. So I went ahead and took the side panel off of the network switch, and I'm going to go ahead and mark and drill the holes to go ahead and put these L brackets on the side of them so that they match up with where the rails will be when we install it. So we got the drill press here, and we're going to just make some cuts and see if everything can line up. We got the holes all drilled, and now we just have to smooth them out on the inside. So I'm going to use this grinder to just take away some of the extra parts that were left over. Alright, so now all we have to do is mark and put in the holes on the L bracket to match the ones that we just did. So I'm going to use the drill for that. Here we go. Alright, so we got the corner brackets on there, and now we'll be able to attach this when the rest of the unit is ready. I went ahead and found some really nice thin screws and bolts to go ahead and put this thing back together, and they shouldn't get in the way, so we're going to try to put the PCB back together now. So now it's time to try to figure out how to match up the things I did on this network switch to the actual server case. And again, this is the MX500 from our tiny living room computer. This is a version that they make that has an 80-watt power supply in it. So I have an AM1 45-watt system in here, which runs perfectly fine with just the 80-watt PSU that comes with this case. We have a couple of laptop hard drives that provide both the server and Windows environment, as well as the local storage that we use to do LAN share built in. And we're gonna try to put these brackets on there and see if we can't get them to match up with the brackets that we put on the other piece already. So let's give that a try. So the screw holes that are pre-built onto the side of this case that allow for the fan to go into, there's 3 holes here for fans. They don't quite line up perfectly with how we want these brackets to go. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to use the vent holes built in and just screw with these self-tapping screws with a washer on them to make up the difference. And it'll come out almost flush with the front. So let's give that a try and see how secure it is when we're all done. I think this is going to work. So that's what it'll look like. Pretty sturdy. Okay, so as you can see, we went ahead and put the L brackets on both, and they match up perfectly. So we should be able to match them up with corresponding holes on the brackets themselves to attach these two to make the small rack. Now what we have to do is figure out how to get this all powered. And typically you'd have some kind of a power bar or UPS on your system, but I don't want to make this too bulky. So what I want to try to do is get everything condensed into a small box or case, and then have one cable coming out of the back of it, maybe using a small power brick like this guy, and see if we can't condense some of these cables. We're probably going to have to do a lot of zip tying and whatnot to get everything together. So I will figure something out and we'll see what happens. All right. Okay, so we found this piece of scrap metal, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a shelf out of it and just try to flatten it out, cut it to size, and then use the front here to bolt straight onto the rack. So let's get flattening here. There we go. So that should be able to hold up whatever we put on it as far as power goes. Okay, so I marked the cuts that I'm going to be making to get it to fit inside this small server rack with pencil here, and we're just going to cut them out with the trusty grinder and the cutting wheel. Getting sparks everywhere is going to be a theme of the Custom Corner segment, but I like it, you know? I don't know, there's something about making sparks. But there you got all 3 parts now with the area to hook onto the brackets here, and it's about time to start cutting the brackets. I'm not sure if I'm going to worry about mounting the router at this point. Most of the places we go are going to have a big router, and if not, I can always just stick something like this on the top of it. So I'm going to not worry about that. I'm just going to worry about the hardware infrastructure of the server as well as the switch themselves. So now what we got to do is measure and cut these braces and figure out exactly how they're going to match up with the stuff we've already done. Alright, so we went ahead and cut out this thing as you saw, and we put in the holes to mount them to the bracket. And we'll try to figure out a way to mount all these cables to this shelf that we just built. Now that we've got the bottom part mounted, we're just going to go in order, putting the server and then the network switch onto our tiny little rack now. So, here you have it. The smallest server rack I could make, and with parts we had on hand. This is going to be running a TeamSpeak server this weekend at GamerCon Void State, which is a first-time BYOC overnight LAN for GamerCon. And we're going to be there helping them out, but mostly just there to have a good time. We're going to put this thing through its paces, and hopefully it'll all work out well. I'm going to have to make a couple of short cable runs to go from the network switch down to the server. But other than that, it's ready to go. And I'll be testing it out thoroughly this weekend. Thanks for watching, and as always, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch under the screen name San Diego LAN. And if you want to see where we're going to be next, or if we're going to be hosting an event in the area coming up, check us out at sandiegolan.net. Thanks for watching. Bye.